Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session, One School's Path to Fostering Social and Emotional Learning. My name is Janelle Gailey. I am the Counseling Director at Brother Martin High School in New Orleans, Louisiana. I have a master's degree in counselor education. I'm a nationally certified counselor as well as a licensed professional counselor in the state of Louisiana. I've been a school counselor for 15 years, and I typically work with 8th and ninth grade students. Brother Martin is an all boys Catholic high school in New Orleans. Our counseling department is comprised of a number of people. We have a counselor at each of our 5 grade levels, as well as a full time college counselor, a part time college counselor, and we are very fortunate that in our formation center, we also have a licensed professional counselor up there. She works with our struggling students, the students who need some help academically. So, over the last few years, we have put a deliberate focus on developing a social and emotional learning curriculum. I'll walk you through the process we used to further develop those competencies at Brother Martin. I'm guessing that if you have chosen this session, you know something about social and emotional learning already. So we won't spend a whole lot of time kind of digging into social and emotional learning necessarily, but we're going to spend a few minutes just defining it so that we all understand where, what we're all talking about. So social and emotional learning it fosters caring and healthy relationships through intentionally created learning experiences. The Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, often called CASEL, is generally they break SEL into 5 categories, 5 competencies. The Collaborative for Social and Emotional Learning is often seen as the leading organization in promoting social and emotional learning. CASEL organizes SEL into the 5 competencies: social awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision making. So you can see those 5 through here. And then we also have these blue categories on the outside, which are just the environments in which those things take place. So the top says, classroom, and then across the bottom, the social and emotional instruction and classroom climate. So it does kind of break that down a little further. That's kind of a new development with CASEL, that addition of those blue rings and kind of digging into those. So self-awareness is the ability to accurately recognize one's emotions, their thoughts, values, strengths, and weaknesses, as well as how they influence one's behavior. So it's kind of that self-reflection piece. It's associated with self-confidence, with self-efficacy. Those who have a solid self-awareness have a well-grounded sense of confidence, of optimism. They operate from a growth mindset. They kind of have an accurate self-perception. Self-management is the ability to control or manage, to regulate one's emotions, actions, behaviors, all in different situations. So this includes setting and working toward goals, impulse control, stress management, organizational skills, and self-discipline. You'll see that the second half of that list is a lot of those executive functioning skills. And so those do fall under self-management. So not surprisingly, this is the competency where weaknesses in SEL are most commonly seen. So it tends to be the one that develops kind of latest. Social awareness is the recognition of others' thoughts and feelings, the ability to take the perspective of others and empathize with them, including from diverse backgrounds, from diverse cultures, kind of being able to put oneself in those shoes. Understanding social and ethical norms for behavior, and recognizing the available support systems all fall under that social awareness piece. Healthy relationships involve active listening, empathizing, apologizing, and forgiving. Those all establish and maintain healthy relationships. But skills like communicating clearly, listening well, being able to cooperate with others, responding appropriately to peer influence, navigating conflicts, all of this influences our relationships. And those who build healthy relationships are able to seek help when needed. They're the good, they're good people kind of have on your team. Thankfully, those are all learned skills. Modeling, teaching, and practicing these skills is really integral to developing those relationship skills. The final section is responsible decision making. Several factors that result in responsible decision making. Using ethical standards, being aware of safety concerns or social norms, evaluating consequences, considering the well being of others, all are involved in making responsible decisions. All of this also fosters growth toward goals. So being able to identify challenges, to analyze the situation, to solve problems, and then evaluate the outcomes all fall under decision-making skills. Often when people are first introduced to SEL initiatives, they kind of see it as like one more thing on my plate. Teachers already have these plates that are full of all these healthy things that we want our students to consume, right? But SEL isn't actually on the plate. It's not on the plate. It is the plate. SEL initiatives are the plate on which we serve education. So a student who isn't making responsible decisions is not likely to consistently focus on his academics. An individual who struggles to build relationships is likely going to struggle on, group work, working with classmates, or, working on a team for a sport, even working with colleagues in the future. So it really is kind of that plate that we're sitting on. Without SEL skills, pretty much everything about school is more difficult for our students. Consuming education is messy without SEL in much the same way that eating without a plate can be really messy. Think about those toddlers. They're messy eaters. They have food covering themselves. It's flung on the wall. It's on the back of their head. They don't yet have all the skills necessary to make that meal clean. This is what a student who lacks social and emotional skills kind of looks like. They just don't have it together. So why do we want to teach SEL? Social and emotional learning initiatives increase academic performance. They improve attitudes and behaviors. They increase motivation to learn, general commitment to school. They decrease disruptive behaviors like aggression or emotional distress, depression, anxiety, withdrawal. All of those pieces, we see less of those when social and emotional learning has been put in place. So skills associated with SEL are some of the greatest protective factors that we really can offer our students. When we began our initiative, the first task was to identify the people who were going to serve on this committee. And we started by looking at our faculty to find someone from each of the categories that you see here: administration, faculty formation, campus ministry, counselors, coaches and moderators, content representatives, someone from the math department, from the science department, even grade level representatives, kind of looking at the, if you're kind of organized where your 8th grade teachers work together or your 4th grade teachers work together. We spent time identifying those existing SEL experiences that were already built into our school culture. Many of these experiences were indirect and systemic, and others were specific to those grade levels. So others weren't the kind of systemic pieces. They were direct and deliberate and looking for that SEL piece. Over the course of the first year, we focused on linking the existing experiences to those 5 competencies of SEL. Moving through the year, we found so much more than we really thought we would. You got to think outside the box. Look at all the experiences that you provide for your students. One of the beliefs at Brother Martin is that everything we do teaches something. And this really came to light when we started looking for SEL that was embedded within our curriculum, within our school culture. Once we got thinking about it creatively, we identified so many more than we really thought we would. While identifying experiences is important, we want to determine which competencies are addressed through those activities or those events. You also want to organize those events by population served. So if this exists at the 8th grade level and this other thing exists at another grade level, or content areas, like I said, all those distinctions within your establishment. And then through this process, you're going to begin to see where there's gaps in that school culture, where something's missing. So for example, these are some of the things that we found within our school culture. Safe environment training ensuring that all of our faculty and staff have undergone safe environment training to understand, what behavior is appropriate and what isn't. Our discipline recovery program allows for students who have unique circumstances and their attendance has taken kind of a hit. They end up in our discipline recovery program, which is really just built to take into consideration a student's unique circumstances. Sudden impact is a piece that we do with our sophomores and our seniors, and it's on drunk and distracted driving. That's through one of one of the hospitals here locally. The Great Read, the Summer Read, English language, the literature selections, all of those pieces are done intentionally. We choose those books or those pieces to read based on the values, the morals, the ethics that are established in there, and so that we can bring that into the curriculum. College day and career day are another piece where they're looking at those goal setting pieces. What's beyond the life of a high school? What's next? We also do a parent education series where we have speakers come on campus for parents, where they'll talk about with anxiety or depression or ADHD, executive functioning skills, kind of those pieces that kind of are common themes among our students. We post health and wellness resources on the counseling section of the Brother Martin website. And so our kids have access, our families have access to kind of all of those pieces that we've kind of already vetted for them. We have a wellness center. That's one of our newest things that we've put in place. We have an area on campus that is kind of low lighting, calming space, where students can go when they just need to self-regulate. Puzzles, drawing things, music, all the little fidget toys, kind of all of those things just to step away from the day for a minute if they need to. We also use a behavior self-assessment that we do a couple of times a year so that students can answer those few questions, and the information gets sent directly to the counselors. The counselors are able to kind of evaluate and kind of see maybe where there's a red flag or track someone's behavior over time and how they see from their own perspective. Student service hours are done at each grade level. We have a mentor program where one faculty member has a random grouping of students, and they meet periodically throughout the year working on just kind of some low risk, high fun activities to keep them involved in there with a group of students that they wouldn't necessarily have otherwise met. So it's an effort to build those relationships. Grade level retreats are done off campus and focusing on that self-reflection and self-awareness piece. Some things that happen at grade levels. Summer enrichment, where our incoming 8th grade and 9th grade students are on campus for a couple of weeks over the summer, getting to know each other a little bit, learning about Brother Martin, kind of learning about the culture of who we are and what's expected of them as high school students. But it's not all serious stuff. They spend some time canoeing. They go to lunch with to learn some etiquette, and we teach those boys how to tie their ties. So they have some fun things in there too. Student minister religion visits. The student ministers go into the lower grade levels, into the religion classes, and spend some time building relationships there. We have a suicide awareness and prevention program that we do with our 9th graders and our 10th graders. The 10th graders kind of get a little booster after they have that in 9th grade. We do some sophomore interviews that allows our students to kind of reflect on where they started. Often our guys start with us as 8th graders, so they're kind of halfway through. Allows them to kind of look at, what did I expect initially, where am I now, and where am I headed? So lots of pieces that really come into play there. And then, of course, those things that are specific within a department. Religion, social studies, science, English, all of those do have some pieces that are built in an effort to kind of do some of that social awareness, relationship building, kind of all of those pieces. As the committee worked to identify the existing experiences that we had, we put together focus groups. So focus groups with a faculty focus group, a student focus group, one with parents. This allowed us to learn more about their perspectives on SEL. It kind of helped us to really better identify areas for improvement. One of the things that we kind of discovered was that that information and that data that you receive from focus groups, it's bulky. It's hard to kind of break it down and use it. So using Likert scales, kind of that 5 point from strongly agree to strongly disagree, those pieces were really helpful in kind of making that information more manageable. Those discussions just really allowed us to kind of dig into what it looks like from their end of the experience. Um, we also took that information and used it to put together a document like a Google Doc where everybody can see, everybody from the committee can see that and go through and make sure that we've got everything to see if we missed anything. This really was helpful in identifying the gaps in our social and emotional learning. In addition to that, in indirect instruction, those kind of structural things, you want to have direct and dedicated instruction as well. And there are various curriculums out there that can come into play. A solidly built program is going to include the direct and the dedicated instruction, cohesive, coordinated activities that involve active learning. You really want to go through your programs and make sure that those are the pieces that are in there. Focused, dedicated time and attention. And any curriculum you work with really should be able to identify what competency the lesson is targeting. You want to be able to do that so that you're hitting on those places where you have those gaps. Also, you want to consider whether this specific curriculum is age appropriate, if it's culturally appropriate for your student population. You don't want to go into a classroom and have it be on a level where they just aren't able to kind of connect with the information. Here's some examples of different programs that are out there, and you can Google any of these and find lots of great information about them. Some of these are grammar school programs, some of them are middle school, some of them are high school. And so these are all, pieces that are out there that you can take a look at. And like I said, you can Google those and find lots of good stuff. I cannot overstate the importance of your stakeholder investment, the buy-in from your school community. It is paramount that you have that. It takes time, it takes the right people to promote your program. The clearest path to buy-in is establishing how SEL supports your school's goals, values, your school's mission or vision. Start with training the people who already get it. They see the value in SEL. They're comfortable with it. They're excited about it. As your other teachers begin to see the impact that this is having, they'll start looking for ways to kind of incorporate bits and pieces into their lessons, their projects, even just their interactions with students. And then you can start expanding who you train. And do not underestimate the influence of your coaches. In my experience, they start out kind of reluctant, like, oh, this is touchy-feely, it involves emotions, I'm not comfortable. But then they quickly get on board when they realize that all of those SEL competencies that develop work ethic and dedication and commitment, teamwork, these are all pieces that matter on a sports team. Oftentimes, coaches are more excited about the players who are committed and able to provide a positive influence, leadership to the team than they are the player who's just highly skilled, but really isn't able to kind of harness and pull the rest of the team. So your stakeholder investment, those coaches, they're a really good place to dig. Cut that out of there. Sorry about that. So there's two different routes really to kind of implementing a program like this. And the first one is kind of an all-in program. And so implementing everything with your curriculum all on year one. This can be challenging because you've got to change the culture of your school and you're asking everybody to kind of buy in all at once. It may work well in, kind of a grammar school, kind of a smaller student population, a smaller student body, kind of a smaller school. But this one can be challenging because it's hard to change that culture all at once. But like I said, for some schools, it is the way to go. The other one is implementing over time. in year one, the school would implement the curriculum at the lower levels, and or even just one level, depending on how your school is structured. And then the following year, the initiative would grow up with that class, growing with them as they progress through the grade levels. And this route's slower, but it allows for a graduated buy-in, for the excitement to kind of just spread throughout your population, and that may be easier to adapt to. We implemented our curriculum at the lower levels at the 8th and ninth grade initially because our PE classes weren't able to, students weren't able to participate in PE because of those COVID restrictions. We were fortunate enough to be able to put it into those SEL class or into those PE classes. It's the perfect opportunity to expose coaches, students, and our faculty to the program. Once those restrictions were lifted, we kind of moved the curriculum to fit within our test prep time. And so what that is once a week, we schedule an additional period in the day, and that time is used for developing standardized test taking skills, executive functioning skills, kind of just how to be a high school student and how to do that, how to study. And of course, those SEL lessons ended up in there as well. So some schools will put this in a homeroom. Other schools will put it in like a freshman seminar where it's just kind of a course that's on every maybe ninth grader's schedule. And that way everybody in that grade level gets that exposure. Ideally, you do want to keep the same group of students with the same faculty member for the entire curriculum. It fosters relationships in the classroom, those relationships with the adult. Students are much more apt to learn that it's a safe place to open up, to express themselves, to learn about others, if that group is consistent. So that is also, I think, a piece that's worth paying attention to. Once your program's in place, you're going to want to continue to evaluate. You're going to want to continue to gather information, and typically suggested that you do this 3 times a year. So at the beginning of the year, kind of a pre-test, midway through the year for progress, and at the end of the year for kind of a post-test. Providing these at least 3 times over the course of the school year really provides you with information that you need in order to validate the importance of your program, the time that's dedicated to SEL. Lots of types of assessments that you can use. It's common to use questionnaires or surveys with students and faculty and parents. Report cards can even serve as an assessment tool. Students' grades often increase as they learn to better manage those SEL skills. Interviews and focus groups with stakeholders can really provide valuable information about the attitudes and perceptions among your school community. But like I said before, this information can be bulky and complicated to compile. So be mindful of the format that you're using and the language that you use in the items that you present for them. Another piece that I have found to be really helpful is allowing teachers to observe each other's lessons that are SEL focused. It provides helpful motivation and identifies teaching practices that foster SEL. Teachers learn so much from each other, and when we throw the word observations in there, it's kind of one of those things that teachers either love them or they hate them. But this allows your community to highlight those among your faculty who really exemplify SEL in the classroom. Teachers who find a way to kind of personalize the lesson and make it real are so much more engaging for their students, and the students are willing to kind of let their guard down a little bit more easily when it's brought down to a personal level. You can measure lots of different outcomes. You can measure absenteeism, suspensions, the number of discipline referrals, the academic performance, like with those report cards, depression, anxiety, drug use, school refusal, mental health. All of these things are those pieces that are really going to give you the data. And really, anytime you can back up your program with data, you definitely want to do that. So examples of pieces that are out there that are assessment tools: the Behavioral Intervention Management and Assessment System, Um, I'm not familiar with all of these, but they're all pieces I've come across as we were kind of developing our program. Devereaux Early Childhood Assessment, they do a student strengths assessment that I think is built for a little bit older of an age group. Social emotional assets and resilience scales, they're also wordy. Social skills improvement system rating scales, behavioral and emotional rating scale. Panorama Education has an assessment. Castle has a guide to a teacher self-assessment, which is really nice for teachers to be able to kind of look at the progress of what are my students getting, what are they being exposed to as we move throughout the course of the year. So lots of different pieces that you can use for that. And there are resources, there are tons of information about SEL out on the internet. You just have to go looking for it. When we started, we looked to lots of different documents for inspiration. Some of them are listed here. Many state education boards actually put out reports that are specific to SEL, so those can be particularly helpful. Even if it isn't your state, there's still plenty of great information in there. There's lots of resources within those reports. So browse through them, ignore the parts that are state specific and don't apply to you, and then explore those resources that are in there. They often contain a lot of links to information. So, you've got some articles here. This is a piece put out by Newsela. Panorama has this huge user guide that's just got a ton of information. Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, Minnesota Department of Educational, the National Professional Resources Incorporated, they have a lot of tangible information that's kind of handout information. And they've got it on a ton of different SEL pieces. So if you're looking for kind of a tangible physical piece to distribute, they've got some great resources. Castle has a blog series that teachers kind of all put information about what they're doing, asking questions, kind of a digging and sharing, because that's what we do. Character Lab has some great information. The College and Career Competencies Framework is kind of one of those that I found that really focuses on life beyond high school, and are we preparing our students adequately and appropriately for the next step. Couple of pieces. The other side of the report card, that's a book that I have found that kind of looks at SEL. It's kind of similar to emotional intelligence from a few years back. And then Angela Duckworth, also an author, she has a piece on her website that's called the Character Growth Card. That's really a neat piece for people to use. So, like I said, tons of information out there. All you have to do is just Google it and go out there and look for it. SEL is so much more than just adding in a specific curriculum. It's the culture within your school, and I think that's where you really will find the bulk of your social and emotional learning. And through that process, identifying those gaps so that you can fill them in and make some deliberate choices about what you're going to have your students experiencing throughout their time in your establishment. Our life experiences truly do teach us so much more about social and emotional learning than we really realize. So there's my contact information if you want to get in touch, and if you have questions about any of the things that I've kind of talked about, please don't hesitate, reach out, and I will be happy to help you as best I can. I hope you have enjoyed and gotten something from this that you can use. If nothing else, there's pieces that you can go Google and find information about those different pieces that are out there. So thank you for your time. Thank you for coming. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.